I'm doing great. Nice to be here with you all.
Yeah, we're really interested in art and artists and musicians, and in particular, how they respond to this question: what does it mean to be radically human? Our concern right now is that not only is the biosphere in danger, um, democracy's in danger, and even our humanity is endangered. So, these are themes that you've done music about, and would be really interested to hear some of your takes on this. What does it mean to be radically human right now? What are the dehumanizing forces that we're up against?
Mm.
Hmm. Um, there's a lot. Where, where do I start? We're, I guess, I need more specific questions than that. That's too big a question for me to wrap my brain around right now.
Well, what are the most pressing issues
Mm.
of the moment
Mm.
for Homo sapiens, for humans right now? What do you see as knocking on our door? What's the wolf right now?
Mm.
Um, well, the big ones are climate, the
Mhm.
climate situation, and here in the United States, as well as many other countries, the struggle to protect democracy. And so those are a, and those are huge, and very, very few of us have any idea of what to do about that. So that weighs on our humanity. Um, Another thing that weighs on our humanity is the constant barrage of disempowering messages from the news and advertisement and television. Uh, Social media is a horrible assault on humanity. It's causing an epidemic of suicidal thoughts in our youth. I suspect it feeds into that for adults also. So, like you say, I think that's why we're having this conversation. I mean, humanity is in crisis. Just how to be happy, how to walk through our day, and so a theme I constantly repeat. And I think of Bernie Sanders. Bernie says the same damn thing every speech. The billionaires and the 1%. So my my thing that I say every time is uh, just remember how beautiful it is to be alive, how lucky we are to be alive, how what an incredibly beautiful world we are in, despite how crazy our culture is sometimes. And I think we all have to make an effort to not let all these bizarre circumstances and forces drag us down. That we will be happy and we will have fun in spite of these losers out there who are trying to take our freedom away.
For years you seem to have used music to help us enhance or appreciate our humanity. What do you see as the role of music to help people become more human, to sort of keep their perspective?
You know, music and the arts are they can be a really lovely way to communicate it because it can suspend the logic. It's not a discussion per se. It's more of an emotion. Like the reason storytelling, the reason history has always been passed through storytelling, especially around the campfire, in non-literary cultures, for millennium, is because you can get lost in the story. You can relate with the characters, and it carries a meaning. And the story belongs not to the teller, but to the listener. When I sing a song, people ask me, what does that mean? And I say, well, what do you think it means? It's that's really what matters. It kind of doesn't matter what I mean. I may think it means something, but it's a very ancient form of communication, and music, music without any words,
Mm.
we as humans can feel the emotions of the music. We have a sense of what the music is about. Oh, this is intense. Oh, this is dramatic. Oh, this is soothing. Oh, this is happy. Oh, this is dancing. It's so the music has a way of reaching our hearts. Um, we're a lot less likely, if at all, to put up our walls, to react, to have our buttons pushed by music. And if the lyrics, or if there are words, are constructed in such a way that it's a story, um, people may not react. I mean, in my art form, my rule number one is I try not to be preachy,
Mm.
and sometimes I fail at that. But nobody wants to be preached out about anything. It's like, oh God, I'm going to go watch football or something. But um, you want people to come in and be invited into the story. They may disagree with what the characters in the story are doing.
Right.
The story isn't about me as the performer. It's not about me as the songwriter. It's just a story, and they can take from it what they will. So music gives a freedom of communication. And so it can be very powerful, can be very unifying. Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, they were the masters of this. They knew how to construct a song, the simplicity of the song. It's amazing. A song can make us feel good to be alive. A song can make us realize that we have all this in common. A song can unify a huge number of people, a crowd in a moment. It can unify an entire society. One song
Mm.
can, one song can shift an entire culture and even topple a government. An intolerant and unloved government. It's an extraordinarily powerful thing.
Mm.
Um, and even if I'm talking to some of my colleagues right now, even if the songwriter's intention was not for the song to be, a quote unquote revolutionary song or societal change song, I've said to them, I go, well, that's just too bad. It's like it's too bad for you because the music belongs to the listener
Yeah,
and
right.
where they take it. And if they I said this to one of my friends. I said, yeah, if they pick up your song and it becomes the theme song from the struggle to protect democracy in the United States and the FBI comes knocking on your door, well, too bad. There's nothing you can do about it. The song is out there, whether you meant for that or not. That's part of the deal with being an artist.
Right. Right.
Nice, nice. One of I have a question about misanthropy. And the reason is because every time there's an environmental disaster of some kind, I read the comments on the internet, and there's a lot more people now saying humans are the problem. I hate humans. I hate humanity. And there's just this really dark thread going through
Mm.
our discourse now. And I remember one of our conversations from a couple of years ago. You said one of your objectives is to help people feel better, to help people to feel good about being human. That was
Mm.
one of your objectives. So I just wonder how you're responding to this sort of anti-human sentiment that's out there now.
Mm.
And I understand the sentiment because, if you're paying attention, you realize that our culture is literally a suicidal culture. Like we're destroying ourselves. We're destroying all the places, communities, the people we love. And so that when the things you love are being destroyed, you have a tendency to be annoyed with the cause. And indeed, humanity is the cause. But I think that it's a misplaced anger. I think we have to have compassion for each other. We're all born in to this crazy
Mm.
era. We're all born into this bizarre culture that that thinks of, other living things as objects and resources. Um, and I think, and also if you want to be effective at making the change, we have to be compassionate with our fellow human beings, especially and including those who maybe are working on jobs that we might deem as destructive. I mean, those workers may full well know that what they're doing is destructive, but they feel stuck. What are they supposed to do? Like I've had some of my, environmental philosopher friends, describe it as a struggle, as a war, as a battle, and I'm like, I don't see our situation as a battle or a struggle. I see it as a trap.
Mhm.
We're stuck in this economy. We're stuck in this culture that we're all raised in, and we're all doing our best and trying to pay the rent and put food on the table and take care of our kids, and it is hard. And so um, that's that's why, sure, you can be annoyed with what humanity is doing, but the way forward is to develop our communities. The way forward is to grow our own local food, is to support our own local businesses, to, you know, you know, stop doing business with the billionaires who want to take away our jobs and our freedom. You know, United States has been through that before. Americans have been that before. We don't we don't like it when someone's taking away our economy and our freedoms. We don't want to be dominated by kings or super rich people who just want to take things away from each other. And the entire history of our country, including the Native Americans who had all their land stolen, including the the slaves and the descendants of slaves who had all their land and their freedom stolen, and most of the rest of us are all descendants of people who were escaping different parts of the world because they had their land and their freedom stolen. Our whole country is full of people who have put up with an enormous amount of abuse, and I think that's a unifying thing. We've all, and maybe not in our generation, but our grandparents or great grandparents further back.
Mhm.
But when you remember that, it's like we're tough. We can have the resilience. We're not going to let our children down. We may not succeed on stopping the climate change, and we may go extinct, but we're sure as hell going to go down fighting. We're simply not going to give up. Americans and other people around the world are not going to give up on their democracy, and the world, humanity as a whole, is not going to give up on climate change, even if we're not successful. We're going to try to be successful, but we're not giving up, and we can be proud of that because that's who humanity is. That's one of our strongest things that we can be proud of in our species is we are survivors. We're enormously creative survivors. And yeah, we create a big mess, but we also got to be proud of the good things in ourselves. And I think that's the way forward. I hope I answered your question there, Frank.
Yes, beautiful, beautifully put.
Hmm. Tell us about your 501(c)(3), the Drop of Water. I was interested reading about it and some of the programs that you produce out of that.
Yes, the Drop of Water Fund is a nonprofit, and that has helped fund some of my environmental education uh, music videos and some of my environmental education projects. It's a 501(c)(3). It's tax deductible, which means it can't be used for political stuff. And nonprofits, what political stuff means for nonprofits is basically you can't advocate for one candidate or another using
Right.
that, and you can't. I know we all know that, but I'm just saying it for our listeners. You
Yeah.
can't.
Primarily, it's educational.
Yeah, it's in service oriented. You can't say vote for initiative X or candidate Y, but
Right.
but you can educate if initiative X is about stopping a oil pipeline through Nebraska, you can educate about the oil company, the impacts of that
Right.
oil pipeline. That's education. But yeah, and so that's real handy. That I appreciate your asking about that. Um, because the music business has changed with streaming, and most
Mm.
musicians, it's put most musicians out of work. Um, but now, um, when smaller time musicians record, we have to, there's no chance of recouping that money. Before streaming, you could recoup the money from selling CDs if you had enough of a following. Now you can't. It's very difficult. So all money now in music is from live performances, or what I'm trying to do now is, kind of donation based through Patreon, and I'm trying to do public service work where I'm working for the community, working for the environment, and I figure people who appreciate my work might kick in a little here or there. But the nonprofit is a nice thing for people who can use the
Right.
tax deductible status.
Right. It does seem tougher for either artists who work with paint or sculptures as well as musicians to make a living nowadays because sort of the centralization of the process and new media things such as streaming. It just has changed the whole business, I guess.
Yes, and historically musicians have had it the best because we'll be playing music at the pub, and at the very least we'll get free beer and free food. Whereas, the sculptors and the writers and the dancers they don't have those regular gigs. Everyone's going to eat and drink every night. So music has had a kind of a privileged role a position amongst the arts community because we could actually make a living. Now that's been, somewhat stripped of us now with streaming. But I want to say that when you see, basically all kinds, I mean, all artists, writers, sculptors, painters, dancers, musicians, you see them doing a Kickstarter or fundraising to make this album or this or that. That's how they do it because our culture isn't geared to, reward that necessarily economically enough. So I'm just making that pitch for all of your favorite artists. It helps if you can support them a bit here or there as you can.
Right?
Yes, on the subject of the media, I remember one of your older songs called TV God. And that was really pointed because it was presenting television as kind of a teacher and kind of a curriculum for people to learn and pointing out how the absurdity of that. And in the years since that song, it's just gotten even worse now with the internet. And yes, yes. So where are you coming down on the media these days?
Well, God, I was actually watching my favorite music clip on YouTube while you were saying that, Frank. No, I'm just kidding. These are the ultimate distracting. Uh, wow. It is very hard. I mean, I mean, our personal TVs that we carry around with each other, are, who thought that it could get worse than television? But now, 24 hours a day, it's so addictive. Like I don't, I never answer my phone anyway, so it's not too much of a problem for me. But that is, I think, and it's funny. That is the biggest single assault on humanity, which even I think affects us more day to day than even our fight for our democracy and climate change. Uh, it makes me happy when I see people pulling away from it. I'm hoping that in our current political situation, where watching virtually all of our tech billionaires, cave into the king, it's like, wow, all the richest guys in the world are weenies. No, 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 Musk is not a weenie. He's perfectly straightforward about his fascism, but the other guys are just weenies. I mean, and what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing in the last couple of weeks is people are so mad. They are so mad at Bezos and Zuckerberg and Google and Apple that they are starting to pull the plug on it. I don't know how big a movement this is, but I've heard it two or three times in the last week. It's
Hmm.
like, that's it. These guys are all anti-democracy. I have to do what little thing I can. And so I don't know how big it'll become, but one of the tools of nonviolent non-cooperation when trying to protect your democracy is to boycott and not give the people who are, subjugating you or attempting to push you around your money. And is that going to be a big thing? I wouldn't bet on it, but there are boycotts historically that have packed a punch, that have influenced the courses of outcome. A big one that probably a lot of people are aware of was the anti-apartheid boycott in South Africa. Now that
Right.
went on for a long time. I worked on it as a college student. I was I was a college student in those days. Um, so I have a feeling that with the current situation in the United States, I don't know which boycotts will rise up the most, take the biggest bite, but I have a feeling, yeah. But back to your point about social media, people are, I think everyone realizes that social media is bad for them. Even the teens who are totally addicted, who won't put the phone down, they know it's bad for them. But what's interesting is, I think while they're maybe less motivated to protect their mental health and their health, when they feel abused and when they feel their freedoms are being taken away by the owners of the social media, maybe that will change people's behavior. I wouldn't place a lot of money on that, but it's an interesting question.
You reference college and the South African boycotts. How did you get into this? I mean, how did
Hmm.
you decide that I'm going to take? You've obviously got this, musical talent, and a lot of talents that go with it too. I think. I mean, from you can have musical talent and not be a performer, but
Hmm.
you seem to be able to have made a life out of both. How did you decide to get into this, and then describe how your path ended up to where you are today? What motivated you?
Well, I was, raised by parents that encouraged both my brother and I to be free thinkers. And I never quite understood what that meant, but when I look at the result, they got a couple of free thinkers for better or worse. And I was very lucky when I was 3, 4, and 5 years old. My grandmother, who worked with Common Cause, and she was a bit of an activist, uh, but she babysat me a lot. And I think she realized that she had a live one with me, that I was actually interested in justice issues, even from when I was a tiny tot. So she kind of started training me. So I was just always interested in doing the right thing and sticking up for someone who wasn't being treated well. And then I started writing my first songs when I was 14. And I don't know, my third or fourth song was an environmental song because they're bulldozing places where we play, this isn't a new thing. And then in college, I was choosing between being a lawyer and a musician. I thought the musician was harder, so I'd try that first. And then, I my first album was called Our State is a Dump Site. I was just outraged that I had just moved to Washington State from the East Coast, and as soon as I got here, the East Coast proposed to move all their commercial nuclear waste to Washington. And I'm like, what the heck is this?
Hmm.
So I wrote this goofy song, and then I realized that with marketing a song, you got to go to the people who might be into it. So we went to the different, anti-Hanford nuclear waste dump groups, and they helped, and that's how I got my launch. In the music biz, it's if you're if you're a big name, that's different. But when you're starting out, having some kind of a niche is really helpful. You know, for women, it might be the women's music thing, or there's just different things for different people. But I chose well, I am an environmentalist, so I worked on that. Um, but yeah, so it just kind of unfolded from that, and um, I sing almost all the places I sing, including um, are the events are set up in one way or another by someone I've met through my environmental work with my music. Um, and something we talked about earlier, um, and you're suggesting other skills I have. I'm also a natural organizer. I like to work on political campaigns. I like to design political campaigns. I'm working on one right now with a team to get nuclear waste stored near the Opera House in Santa Fe. Take it out of the 55-gallon drums that are stored in a big tent and put them somewhere safer. You can't make this stuff up. But anyway, I'm working on that. But I've worked on a lot of different campaigns. Another thing I like about it is I was raised in Kingston and New Paltz, New York, upstate New York, ag country. New Paltz is an ag town and a college town. My town, when I was being raised, New Paltz, was 55% Republican, 45% Democrat, basically 50-50. It still is to this day. That's a swing congressional district. And so that's who I hung out with. I hung out with everybody. And what I realized, so I just know, I grew up in the middle America, and I just know that people are good. They might have different political values, but they'll come together on important things, especially things that affect the local economy or the local community's health. And so a lot of my work with the music is to work on projects that bring the whole community together. And in this era of let's call it aggravated divisiveness, like there's only one strategy from the people who want to control us, and there's only been one strategy forever. It's divide and conquer. So whenever you hear the news saying we're divided, well, that's by design. They don't want us teaming up, because when we team up, we win. We win. And we have the potential of winning on our struggle for the U.S. democracy. When they push us too far, and middle America, Republicans and Democrats get tired of being fired, get tired of their freedoms being taken away, get tired of being bullied by a bunch of billionaires who are taking away our way of making a living. Those arrogant billionaires, I think, are going to be surprised, because I think Americans are going to stand up, and it's not going to be the left or the right. It's going to be all of us, and we're going to flood the streets, and hopefully it'll be a happy day, and they'll have to back off a bit. But I really believe that people have more in common than that divides them, and that the things that do divide us, real issues, we have real disagreements. That's fair, but those are exacerbated by the people who don't want us to unite on economic issues.
One of the themes we often talk about is, what do we tell young people at this moment in history? And I know a lot of young people are attracted to the arts and music. And what if you were to meet some young person who was inclined in that direction, maybe into art, activism, music? What kind of advice do you give them as being kind of a tribal elder, you might say?
It's a really, really powerful time to be an artist.
Mm.
Like I was whining earlier that it's harder to make a living, and that's true. But the downside of streaming is I have to, ask people for donations to pay my rent. The upside of streaming music, and it goes for the rest of the arts, because you can put your art up everywhere, is that the entire world can see your art. You don't have to go through a record label. You don't have to be published. What you have to do is put it out there in a way that people can see it, so things can go viral on social media. I mean, I have a love-hate relationship with social media. On the one hand, I see the destruction it's doing on my family and my friends. And on the other hand, it gives us all a medium where, in the current situation, basically anyone in the world can have their own TV show, on
Yeah.
YouTube or Substack or whatever. Um, so for the youth, I just say, go for it. Whatever medium you have,
Mm.
trust your creative impulse and just do it. And then when you put out your song or your painting or your poster or whatever, put it on the internet, let your friends know about it. Everyone knows a few people or 20 people or 100 people. Let your friends in school know it, and they'll pass it around. And another thing I tell to young artists is don't think of, oh, going viral, you got to have 1 million views or whatever. Going viral is cool. But think about it's like one of the disempowering things about the mass media market with the arts is, we think if we're not Beyonce, if we're not Bruce Springsteen, then we're nothing. And that's simply not true. I tell young songwriters, you could write a beautiful little song about your town, and maybe your town loves that song. Maybe that's
Mm.
400 people loving that song. And maybe that influences your town city council to maybe create a park or do something else. That's real power. And before telephones and social media and everything, that was indeed how the world was. It's like we could be outstanding in our community. You know, maybe I'd be one of the better entertainers in my town, or maybe someone would be the best carpenter in their town, and someone might be the best chef in their town. You're not comparing yourself to every damn musician, chef, and carpenter in the world, and that's overwhelming. So I just I encourage young musicians just to keep writing, keep recording, artists keep doing it, keep putting it out there. If you can't make a living at it, that's okay. What matters is you're having fun. You do something else to pay your rent. Um, but but in a world where I mean, we have to express ourselves. I mean, it's imperative. It's imperative that the young people, especially young artists, but all of them, uh, express themselves because they need to get the rest of our attention. I mean, I think, the four of us here, we're here because we're very worried about the state of the world, and we
Right.
want a good world for our kids. Well, I mean, this is not going to come as a surprise to any any 22-year-olds listening out there. But most of the older generations don't really get it. They kind of understand. They're not sure what to do. And I'll just, speaking as an elder now, elders, they might not like what the youngers have to say, but we hear it, we're interested. And so young people sharing their art, sharing their feelings, it makes a difference. It's because all organizing is person to person. And if you touch 20 people in your town, 2,000 people in your town, maybe in your region, we can all make a difference that way.
JLo, you must have some ideas.
Yeah, well, Dana, I was really inspired by what you said about music at the beginning. And I immediately went to the concept of, you can go to a wedding and you don't know what the politics are because everybody's playing the same music, you know, and, how many wonderful, it's sort of like, seeing on TV some of the national celebrations from the last presidential election. They're playing YMCA. It's like a little bit of a surprise, but that's cool. And I'm wondering how much of artivism, as Frank has called it many times, how much of that can we use to bring together the things that we have more in common? Because we do our common future. All of our kids, regardless of what high school they could be in Wyoming or they could be in West Virginia or West Lynn. Doesn't matter. They still have a common future. How can we use that idea of weaving together?
It, exactly. Artivism, that's a lovely term. And it is. The arts can be very uniting. And your example of YMCA, I really like it. I've done two parodies of YMCA. I love that song. And when they were, when President Trump was using that in the campaign, I was like, God, I wonder what the YMCA writers think. And I saw, I think it was the main songwriter, or who's the lead singer, and I loved his response. Someone asked him about it, and he's like, hey, he likes the song. That's cool. I don't necessarily agree with his politics, but the man likes the song as an artist. I appreciate that. And then I love that he said this. He goes, he's helping the song. And as a musician, I understood what he means because when Trump was listening to YMCA, dancing there with Kristi Noem or whoever else was there were a lot of people in the United States going, "Oh yeah, I remember that song," and they put it on one of their streaming platforms and they listened to it. And the YMCA guys got whatever their tiny percent, and so I just liked that. I think it can be very unifying. But yes, the arts can the arts can touch people's hearts in ways we don't realize. Like in a debate, in a lecture, it's just different. It's different than the intellectual approach. And this is something I work with, my environmentalist and scientist colleagues who are working on an environmental issue. Like I tell them, okay, tell me the three most important things, and I'm going to put it in terms that any 12-year-old can understand. And I talk to a lot of people about this. Scientists and environmentalists often are, very concerned about the facts. And look at this, if you consider all these different facts, surely you come to this conclusion. It's like, yeah, who has time? Who has time to read? It's like people are busy. It's just like the Santa Fe nuclear waste. We whittled it down to I don't know, two lines. One fire away, radioactive San Jose. God forbid one of the many wildfires hits that canvas tent with those 55-gallon drums, and that stuff spewed out. Here you have a beautiful capital city, uninhabitable. That's an easy win. We can win that. They don't need to know the chemicals. They don't need to know. It's like, so the arts can distill
Mm.
an issue down to something you can feel in your heart, and you go, that's just not right. That's who we are. I mean, I'm a nerd. I like all the data and all, but that's my instructions for everyone trying to communicate with folks. It's like, really, we only need to know two things. They're like, okay, fine.
Right. Well, it's a good term though, the word distill, because you're right. Art can focus something and make it clear to everybody. Yeah, very important.
Yeah, I read a book recently called Don't Be Such a Scientist. And it was a guy named Randy Olson who was trained as a scientist. And for some reason, and he spoke like a scientist and he wrote like a scientist. But then for some reason, he had to go to Hollywood to work on a film as a consultant. And he
Mm.
worked with a coach, an acting coach, and that was her advice. She said, "Don't be such a scientist. You have to get away from the facts. You have to get to feeling." And
Mm.
that phrase, "Don't be such a scientist," it really stuck with me. It's yeah, if you want to communicate, get to the heart.
Yeah, it's tell
Yeah.
tell the story.
Yeah.
You were involved for some years with a very famous uh, ecological or environmental activists. I think I saw somewhere I saw a picture of you, and you were characterized as the environmentalist with an ape, and you were standing there with a banana in your hand. Could you tell us the background of that story?
So you're talking about my photograph with Jane Goodall,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
great
yeah.
primatologist, and the caption. I have to admit this. I ambushed Jane for that photograph. I knew we were going to do a photograph for our album, Circle the World, where she tells stories about the environment and chimpanzees, and I sing six songs. And So I thought, oh wow, I'm gonna show up to the photo shoot with a banana. And so there's a picture of me holding the banana, and we're both laughing. And the caption I came up with, Jane Goodall and another great ape.
Yeah.
And that's for those, that's not a compliment to me. That's for the speaking of scientists, great ape is what is our family group, or it's the primates are all great apes. Uh,
But she stepped up to do an intro to one of your publications. Sort of describe how did all this come about? How did you meet her, and how are you involved
oh,
with her work? And
yeah, I've been blessed to become friends with Jane Goodall and to work with her. And I just got invited to do two shows with her in April of this year in Oregon. And uh, when I met Jane, I was singing at the March for Animals in Washington, D.C. Big animal rights thing. And I preceded her. I sang "Cows with Guns," and then Jane came on stage, and we had never met before. She just came up and gave me a big hug and kiss, and I'm like, "All right, we're going to get along here." And then I didn't meet her for a couple more years, and my song "The Tree," which Jane just loves, was turned into a book,
hmm,
and for a little publishing house in Seattle, and they had a discussion who are the best people. It was an interesting team. Like 8 people worked there, and everyone weighed in on all the decisions. It's fascinating. The artists, the people who mailed out the books, the typists. It was fascinating. So all 8 of us, who are the best people in the world to write a blurb for the tree book? And someone says Jimmy Carter, Mikhail Gorbachev. I'm like, oh my God, these people are over the top. And, uh, Robert Redford and Jane Goodall, Pete Seeger, and at the end I said, Jane helps out small uh, small environmental groups. She might do this. And then we immediately started to figure out how I could meet Jane. And then I was in the Arctic for an emergency meeting to stop of Native American leaders and environmental leaders to stop oil drilling in the Arctic. This was in the 90s. And I met a gal there who mentioned she was going to a symposium in Ellensburg with Jane Goodall in September. And I said, oh, I'm going to go to that too. And then I called the organizers and offered to sing and managed to get into that. And then I met Jane there and asked her for a blurb. And her assistant Mary said, oh, yeah, well, we'll look at that. And then I was setting up for my concert it was at Jane's Roots and Shoots gathering. We went and we visited the chimpanzees. That's a whole nother story. But when I was setting up for my show, Mary, her assistant, comes in and she goes, Dana, are you the cows with guns guy? And I said, yes. And she proceeded to buy $110 worth of my merchandise. And I thought, I'm going to get a blurb. And since then, Jane's invited me to, be a part of many of her talks. She'll often invite, like I go to a lot of Roots and Shoots, the youth programs, and do a
hmm,
presentation. But sometimes when she can, she'll invite me to come up during her talk to sing The Tree
hmm.
because she just loves that song. And so I, I I haven't heard yet, but I may be singing The Tree with her at those shows. But I'm awaiting my marching orders on those. But yes, thank you for asking. That's a really a treasured friendship, and I Jane is just a joy to be with, and I also just love to watch her. I've watched her do sign language with chimpanzees. I've watched her talk to different animals. I've I don't know if she still does this, but she used to sign people's books after talks, and she usually takes about a minute with each person. And what really moves me and impresses me about her, and I try to learn from, is she is extremely present with each person, with each chimpanzee, with each poodle. Like she talks to all animals, all creatures in the same way. She's just enormously present. Like she is very aware about how important that is. And I find that very moving. And I try to remember that. I don't remember that a lot of the time, but like to me, you know, this is something I'm working on, but what are we doing if we're not present with the person or the creatures we're with? So that might be saying more about me than anyone else, but I'm working on that.
I think we're all working.
Well, we're coming up on our time here. What do you have cooking for the coming year? What kind of tour schedule and that kind of thing are you up to?
Uh, I'm about to attempt to. I'm starting on a new project. Really, it's kind of a whole new approach. Still working with the music, but I'm going to try to do. I guess some people call it YouTubing, some people call it podcasting. Basically, the way to I explain to my father is I'm going to do a TV show on the computer. My dad's 90. It's like, what? Like, just imagine a TV show on the computer. Who can watch? Anyone in the world. Like, wow. So I'm finishing up my homework for it. I'm hoping to dive into that in April, give or take. But my hope for that is I did a few of these shows early in the pandemic, and I found that I was regularly had about 70 viewers live around the world, and it was fascinating. And I didn't realize this was going to be, but part of the entertainment value was the fact that there are people watching and commenting from all over the world in all these different time zones. And one of the things that I found particularly amusing is I'd be spouting off about some environmental issue, and unbeknownst to me, because I don't wear my glasses, when I'm telling stories or something, I only put them on to look at the comments after I've sung and talked. But several shows, there an expert or two on that very subject happened to be on there that I didn't know, and they're in the comments. They're correcting me real time, so it's it's a little embarrassing. But it's funny. It's kind of it makes for good entertainment. It's like, oh God, he made another mistake. It keeps people engaged. So anyway, I'm hoping that that can be a way I can add to the discussion, add to the inspiration, add to hope. I'm going to travel around. I'm going to talk to people who inspire me. I'm going to go where communities are doing beautiful work, where I want to tell the stories of where conservative farmers and ranchers are working with progressive and liberal environmentalists from the city, and they're working to stop this pipeline or that natural gas drilling or this or that, and really try to or people in Santa Fe working, just trying to clean up. I'm a feature where communities are unifying to do something good for their local economy and the local environment, and that's really going to be my theme. Bernie's got the billionaires. What I want to address is climate change is an economic issue. Yes, it's obviously an environmental issue, but the reason I want to focus on that is because we're all worried about paying the next month's rent. And when people realize that climate change isn't just something that eco-freakos like me talk about, that when they go, I paid my home insurance today, it went up 50%.
Hmm.
When your home insurance is going up, when your car insurance is going up, that's not just, sure, the big insurance companies are taking a handsome profit, but it's going up because of all these fires and floods that have to be paid for. We mentioned earlier about the insurance companies. I've been working on the climate change issue since the 90s and even before. And the only industry that ever took that seriously is the insurance industry. And that's because they have to pay for it. They have to underwrite it. And that's why you can't get insurance in Florida, California, soon to be Oregon. Washington is next. And then I want to, and so I want to ask people, okay, Are you worried about your paycheck? Does climate change affect your job? Does climate change affect your ability to own a home? What are you going to do when the insurance company and the state pull your insurance and your house burns down? I'm going to tell you what you're going to do. You're going to build a much smaller house next time. We're all going to be living in smaller houses that are going to be easier to build when they burn down. God forbid that happens, but let's be real. So basically, I want to spread the message. Climate change is going to hit us in the pocketbook, and it's in all of our economic interests to say, "Woo, we better take this seriously." It's just like what I realize is people are like, "Oh yeah, 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 the environment's important. Oh yeah, 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 the future of our children is important. Oh yeah, 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 the health is important. This is going to cost me $1,000." You know,
Yeah.
I paid, I can't even say the number. I mean, like, I looked at this, and can I afford to have a home anymore?
Mm.
I mean, it was just, and get this, I didn't feel totally ripped off because I understand why they're raising it.
Right.
It's so anyway, we'll see. We'll see if I like the YouTube podcasting lifestyle. We'll see if anyone else thinks it's amusing, and maybe in a number of months we can weigh in and say, so Dana, is that working for you or not?
Nice, nice. Well,
Nice.
we wish you all the best in this coming year and these projects. And we're kind of low on time, but any other insights, questions?
Thank you very much. I think it's been really helpful for us to hear from you, and maybe we could check in a few months and see how things are going and update you about how we're doing, and see if there's something that would be we could do collaboratively. So we appreciate
Yes,
all the
thank you. And I appreciate you're just raising this issue of this concept of radical humanity, or what is it? Is that the right term?
Yeah.
What does it mean to be radically human?
What does it mean to be radically human?
right.
And
Yeah.
I think that really in short term means, what does it mean to be human in our bizarre culture? And I love that you're asking that question, and I appreciate it because we live in a weird world that's getting weirder, and everything on the screen tells us it's getting weirder. And we don't have to, I'll say it again, I know I said it earlier, but we're lucky to be alive. We're in this beautiful, glorious planet. Even if you live in a big city, you look outside your 10-story window, there's insects and birds doing amazing stuff out there. This is a glorious world. And we don't have to let a bunch of bullies on social media and everywhere else bring us down. We just don't have to. We can get out there and have fun in whatever way we want, and we're just and I just think it's part of our reason to live now. It's just they're coming at us from all directions. Well, I just to hell with that. Let's have some fun. Let's live let's live well. Let's serve the community, and let's being happy. I think is part of being
Mhm.
radically human. It's like, no, we're not going to let them rob our happiness. No way.
Nice, nice.
Nice.
That's beautiful.
Thanks
Beautifully said.
again.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Any last words, Frank?
Not really. I'm just looking forward to staying in touch, and we'll let you know about our adventures, and we'll look forward to spreading the word about what you're doing, and it's going to be great. So we really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Taylor?
Yep. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.